with Helder.
Helder Filipe.
Anybody who could listen to him, work with him, learn from him, it's going to change their life.
Helder Filipe. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
My confidence back. Helder just showed me all of those things that I didn't even realize I was lacking.
I want to eliminate the frustration that you have with simple 3 steps so you can speak, impact, and monetize.
If you ever had a bad day, you can call this guy. Not only is he going to lift up your spirits, but also will give you a lot of ideas. And if you don't understand one language, try another one and try the third one. So there's no way.
Helder, the mentor is your man. With Helder.
Helder Filipe.
Anybody who could listen to him, work with him, learn from him, it's going to change their life.
Helder Filipe. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Helder operates from the heart.
I need focus and my confidence back. Helder just showed me all of those things that I didn't even realize I was lacking.
Who else here, and how many of you think and realize that you're really good at something? Here's your hand. Do you consider that you have invested a significant amount of time and money to become good at what you are? I want to eliminate the frustration that you have with simple 3 steps so you can speak, impact, and monetize.
If you ever had a bad day, you can call this guy. Not only is he going to lift up your spirits, but also will give you a lot of ideas. And if you don't understand one language, try another one and try the third one. So there's no way you're going to be able to communicate with this guy. You speak different languages, so you're able to communicate with a wider range of audience. So if you can do it in English, he does it in French, and he does it in Portuguese. Wow. There's no way that you're going to be able to understand this guy.
The way in which that he presented it was flawless. Helder. He has an awesome, wonderful program that teaches how to communicate effectively and how to monetize based on that.
And I am here at a global event here in Los Angeles. I had the opportunity to hear Helder Phillips speak. He was dynamic, he was convincing, and might I add, he could speak in Portuguese, French, or English. So it doesn't matter. Let me tell you, it was awesome.
Helder so skillfully addresses these hidden issues, helping clients understand and make conscious decisions for their growth and benefit.
The quality of your communication is the quality of your outcomes. Families struggle, people struggle in general because of lack of good mindset and communication.
He's not there to give you information. He's there to help you transform from information to transformation. If you have the opportunity to see Helder speak, to work with Helder as a coach, or to hire him for your company, definitely do it. Take the opportunity because he's going to leave your people in the right place, in the right heart.
Really help people overcome objections. You understand what it is that makes people want to work with you. You have a solution for whatever appears to be a problem, and you realize it's more of helping them understand it's a mental shift.
He's got steps that are very concise. He goes into mindfulness of what we're doing in our business and why. He talks to us about communication and how to use that strategically.
Your leadership has inspired me to become a better person, and seeing you travel from all the way across the country to be here shows me that not only you're inspired, but you're dedicated to success.
The qualities that he holds as somebody who really cares are just, qualities that you really need in a mentor to help guide you.
I just felt so empowered. And like he just made me realize how much potential I have in me, which is amazing.
Thank you all for coming in, for finding from all over the world. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you for finding. Well, you're here because you want to go from where you are, locked right now, with all the skills that you have, to where you want to be, which is being empowered to shift your mindset and be able to communicate with certainty and authority your skills and still monetize it online and offline. Who was that?
He had a strategic way of showing me how to communicate with others, how to have focus and how to have clarity. It's amazing how much I have learned already, and I thank you very much, Holder.
Thank you so much, Helder. I couldn't have done it without you.
I know that I'll be able to be effective just by the things that he's already shared with me.
Elder Felipe, thank you so much. I don't even, it's hard for me to come up with the words to really express the gratitude that I'm feeling.
And we are right on time. Thank you all for watching right now, for being here live. This is another episode of Communicate Monetize show. And I have the pleasure to have as my guest today, Gonzalo Avila. I'm not sure if I'm actually pronouncing his first name and surname correctly, but he's going to be here with us like in a minute or less, when we actually will introduce him or allow himself to just do the introduction. So Gonzalo, I bring you on the show because you have a lot to share, right? Welcome to the Communicate to Monetize show.
Yeah, and it is Gonzalo Avila, so you said it absolutely correctly.
Wow, thank you. Gonzalo, I believe everyone watching live right now, because we actually, streaming, broadcasting to 3 different platforms. The main platform, of course, is my YouTube channel, Helder the Mentor, but we also broadcasting right now on other 2 platforms. We talked about the LinkedIn and the Facebook page. So I think everyone watching right now might be wondering, okay, do I know Gonzalo? Who is he? What does he do? What is it that he actually offers the world? Everybody wants to know about it. And I'm also excited because we're going to have like a very, very interactive conversation here. But I'll let you introduce yourself, Gonzalo, so people can actually know who you are.
Thank you. Well, I know that one of the things that I heard on the introduction video was monetize.
Right.
In order to monetize, you have to go through certain steps, especially if you're in the workforce. You have to interview.
Why?
And because the interview, whether it be you're fairly new in the job market, or maybe you're even seasoned. I've known some people that the last time they interviewed was like 30 years ago.
Wow.
So it's a skill set that someone developed.
Right.
It's also very important because it opens up other opportunities for people.
Right.
So let me quickly share a little bit of my background. It's kind of like, why should people listen to me? Like, who am I and what do I bring to the value to people?
Exactly.
I've been in the employment workforce for almost 29, 30 years.
Wow.
And time has flown by really quick. And during that time, I've also had the opportunity not only to do thousands of interviews, but I've also sat on the other table where I've overseen human resources and participated in the interview process. So I actually selected people based on their interviews. In addition, what I also bring to the table is that I've always been a believer that the more education that you have, that basically will open up more doors for you. And to some extent, it is true. I think you have to have the necessary requirements for positions, but it's not the only thing. It's one of the things or one of the ingredients, but it's not the only ingredient. Because I have 2 master's degrees, I have a doctorate degree, I have lots of professional development.
Okay.
And that's all great to get in the door.
Right.
But it doesn't guarantee the job, offer the job or not. In addition, what I also bring to the table is that I'm also a university professor. I mentioned that I have my doctorate degree that I earned like 5 or 6 years ago. So I work with a lot of people, a lot of students who are pursuing their degrees, and they're hoping that once they get their degrees, whether it be a BA, a Bachelor's of Arts, or a Master, or even a doctorate, that they'll have a job. But the reality is getting your degree doesn't guarantee that you'll get the job, or especially the job that you want. You might get a job, but you might not get the career that you want. It takes some time and it takes some effort. Nothing is guaranteed. And unfortunately, I've seen so many people, both young and older, who have not planned appropriately for the next phase of their life, and they're hoping to have a career or they're hoping to have a job.
Right.
And then the reality hits and they struggle. They struggle more than they have to. And that's what I bring. That's what I want to share with your audience is that life is already hard. We don't need to make it harder for ourselves.
Right.
And the additional thing is that whenever we have these career opportunities, whether it be the career that we want or other future promotion opportunities, it actually brings more money to our families, to us as individuals, so we can buy the car that we want, the home that we want, or even take the vacation that we want. Or if you're like me, my kids are older, I'm paying for their college education. So I need that money to pay for their car, pay for the car insurance, and pay for their college education. Because of the fact that if I don't, then they might not have other opportunities that I want them to have.
Good. And since we are actually like the main topic that we have tonight, well, it's still day, right? It's really about how to build and scale valuable careers. I think a lot of people they struggle with building a solid and a valuable career. Like it doesn't really have to be an international career, but just like being successful in their profession, like the one they should have chosen like to pursue, and be like in a position where money is not actually longer a concern. So what's like, based on your very solid experience of over 29 years, you just said, what would be like the main blocking points that you really find out that usually people go through in order to just scale and build? Let's start with build, right? Because you also mentor and coach people like university students coming from school, from university. So what do you feel like is actually the main blocking point for people to go from like university students, for example, and actually start building a solid career?
Well, I think one of the main things that tends to happen with people is that we don't really plan well.
Okay.
We let the planning on other people, human resources, or other people to plan our career versus taking control. Having a clear roadmap, like a journey roadmap, like where you want to go in 20 or 30 years, where you want to end up, is extremely important. Because Helder, time flies by really quick.
I know.
We're hitting 30 and 40 and 50.
Right.
And if we don't really plan our career, then we leave it to fate, like we hope something happens, or we leave it to other people to decide for us whether we get the promotion or not, or we don't even do it at all, and we end up somewhere. Now, Helder, when I went on vacation recently with my family, we're very blessed because of the opportunities that we've had, that we were able to go to London and also Paris.
Okay.
And there was a lot of planning going on.
I miss Paris, by the way.
Yeah, there was lots. We were there for 10 days, but in it we had an itinerary, day to day, month to month, day to day, hour to hour. Where were we going to visit? What trams we were going to take? What airplanes were we going to take? How we were going to get to point A to point B. We did all that planning before we even got to the location.
Okay.
If we put that amount of planning to a vacation or something else, we should do the same thing with our careers.
That's very important.
It's that important. We have to start planning a roadmap.
Okay.
And even if we don't know, Helder, in life, you always have to be flexible, right? Because we might have a plan of how things might work out.
Yeah.
But the reality might be a little different. So the plan has to be somewhat flexible.
Okay.
So with that, I think is extremely important, because in life something will happen. There might be some hiccups along the way, and we have to be adaptable. But we know our destination. We might take little detours along the way, but at the end we'll get to our destination. And I think that's one of the major things that I see both with young people and older people, that we don't really plan our career.
Right. So what about like those like who already they already have a career, like they already work, they have like maybe like 5 years or even more, 10 years, 20 years, but somehow they found themselves like in a situation where they feel like they're really stuck. Their careers did not like develop, do not evolve. Like what's your potentially best recommendation, best suggestion they do, in order to really unblock their career?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would do, I always recommend to the people that I coach, is to do a self-inventory. And it doesn't have to be hard. Like, do I want to go to work?
Okay.
If you're waking up Sunday night dreading going to work for whatever reason, you have to ask yourself, well, why? Is it other people? Right? Because sometimes you don't have a choice of who you work with.
Mm.
Is it you? Maybe you don't like to be there, or maybe you're dissatisfied for where you're at.
Right.
And if there are a lot of things that you question, then that's what you have to decide as an individual. How long do you want to stay there? Now, sometimes we have to stay there for a year or 2 years. Sometimes it's 5 years or 10 years, right? So with that, sometimes we have to determine how long do we want to stay there. Now, let's say I was Helder, if we say, well, I want to leave, like I want another job or another career, then you have to have an idea of what you want to do.
Okay.
The best time to think about or apply for another job is when you have your current job.
Okay.
You can't not have a job and start looking for a job, or because that's going to be very stressful.
Yeah.
But if you have a job or have your career and you give yourself like a few years, then you're in a very good position. Now that's when your self-evaluation happens. For whatever position that you want or whatever career that you want, you have to determine. And a lot of times the job descriptions that you're looking at, they'll tell you what they're looking for.
Do you agree
These are
that?
the things that they're looking for.
Right. Do you agree that most people do not really have the clarity they need about the skills, the value they can actually add in the marketplace? And that might be like one of the reasons why they feel like stuck, because they don't, it's like they look for a recognition, like they look for acceptance, from other people, like maybe in the same company or something like that. You just mentioned people from HR, but then they don't really trust themselves. They don't really have the clarity they actually need in order to know what actually they can bring on the table. What do you have to comment on that?
I think that you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because we have to, sometimes we make situations bigger than they really are.
Right.
Like we devalue ourselves a lot.
Right.
We don't build ourselves up. And we depend on other people's opinion of us. Even people that we don't respect. Right? We let their opinions influence us when we don't even respect them or think they're worthy of it. But we give them a lot of value.
Right.
We empower them versus empower ourselves. I'm a strong believer in positive mindset, and I know that you also talk about communication.
Right.
And,
yeah.
To provide internal communication or positive self-talk is extremely important.
And
when we grow the most, Helder,
right,
when we struggle the most.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like, that's also one of the reasons why I empower people to have the shift on their mindset from a fear or a confused mindset to a solution and a bold mindset. Because when people do not have the clarity they actually need, what happens is that they actually depend on other people to value them. Some people might feel like judging them, of course. Oh, you so like arrogant or something like that. But in reality, I want everybody watching right now to understand that in reality, they just do not want you to succeed at the highest level. And the other thing, the other component, and we're going to talk more about it, is actually the strategic communication skill. Not only about the communication they actually have with other people, but the communication they have with themselves. They just, call it self-talk. And I think that I've seen like over my career of 20 plus years, not 29, of course, just like you do. And you know what you're talking about because of your solid experience and, as your employment consultant, right? In the state of California right now, right? So I've seen like countless professionals who are very good at what they do. But technically, yes, but people tend to forget that mindset might count at least 80% of our success, and they just say mechanics and techniques count alike around 20%. So, but then they focus so much on the technique. They want to learn finances. They want to learn. It's all good if they learn that, if they're really good at that. But I think they forget to invest also to really shift their mindset, because what we do is actually dependent on the way we think, right? What we have in our mind, who we are. So based on that, they forget to do like this. Just called the personal development, and they just feel like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on my techniques, which is we can be like the engineer bachelor's degree they learn from school, and you deal a lot with students, university students, right?
That's correct. And I think you're right. I think the people that I consult is that we spend a lot of time on mindset.
Right.
Right?
That's good.
Because if you go to the end, right, if you go into the interview
Right.
preparation or the resume, that's a portion of it.
Right.
You have to spend time on the mindset because we all say things to ourselves, thousands of words per day. So what are we saying to ourselves? So it's valuable to spend time on the mindset.
All right.
And
Okay.
because it gives you a stronger foundation. Because Helder, you know that whenever we do anything, it's not going to happen right away.
Of
We
course.
have to have some grit. We have to have some perseverance. And we can't let doubt enter our mind. We have to be confident. And we have to be realistic. It might not happen right away, but it's okay. It will happen. It's just not yet.
And you've been preparing and coaching like so many like university students who really like want to build a very strong and valuable careers. And like because the thing we're actually talking about right now is really like the shift on their mindset and the skill in terms of communication. Like we talking about, I usually talk about it, I empower people to really communicate very strategically. Always tell the truth, of course, but just like in a job interview, because I want everybody to know that this is a very deep conversation that we're having right here about how to build and scale a valuable career, because people really get stressed, and it's not only the impact in terms of financial, but it's also like in terms of family, because a man who is struggling to get a job, for example, a woman who's struggling to get a job or like to choose the right career for him, for her, it might like impact also like in terms of the relationship that the person has with other people, right? And even like the interaction of that person into the society. So what do you have to say about the preparation for job interviews, for example? It doesn't matter if they're starting like their career or if they already have, because we also have many people who already have a career, but they just don't know how to answer, how to have a conversation during a job interview. I want you to comment on that.
Yeah, I think we often think of life in seasons, like we're entering a career, we're in the middle of our career, or we're getting ready to end a career. Right? Those are like the three phases. But in reality, life is life, right? There's still
right.
Even though there's three different seasons, there's always opportunities. And sometimes how we envision ourselves might not be reality based.
Right.
It might be how we see ourselves at that moment in time. Let me give you an example, Elder. So oftentimes when I envision myself, I always thought that I would work in one location or one profession for the rest of my life.
Right.
And now that I'm older and I'm getting to the last phases of my life, I realize that what I'm doing right now, 5 years from now, I don't want to do anymore.
Wow.
I don't want to do the same job and same career. I want to elevate it to a higher level.
Okay.
And just like you, Helder, I'm a strong believer in coaching and giving back and helping others.
Right.
And using all of my knowledge and wisdom that I've learned over the 29 years to help others. That way they don't have to struggle. Because I've seen so many amazing people who could do the job, the profession really well, but they didn't give themselves that opportunity. And then it affected their kids, it affected their marriage, and it had a ripple effect for generations.
Okay.
And I'm about saving generations, because I know if I am able to help someone who wants to be helped, grow financially stable, and also grow their profession, I know that the impact that I'm going to have on their lives will impact generations.
Right. And what do you think about like let's just say based on your experience, the best strategies that people can actually use? Let's just focus now on those who already have experience and they're just struggling to scale, their career. They already have a career. They already have like X amount of years of experience, of work experience, and they just want to scale, but they're kind of like struggling to scale their career. What's your comment on that? Best strategies, best practices.
Yeah, one of the things that I would recommend is like for someone to like, if they can, go to a coffee shop, go into the woods, take a nice walk, and kind of meditate. Like close your eyes and envision what 5 years might look like,
Good.
and develop some, with your family. Like, what are some things that you want to do with your family?
Mm.
What are some things that you want to do with your wife or your spouse? And what type of car or home do you want to have? Envision what that might look like, and then determine, do you have the resources to get to that point? If 5 years was now, would you be able to do what you want to do?
Right.
If the answer is no, then I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say, well, is it a realistic goal, right? If not, then we have to look at what do we need to do to get there. And
Good.
sometimes I think what happens with many of us is we get very comfortable.
Mm.
We get comfortable with the career and the job that we have.
Right.
But Helder, I'm going to shock everyone. Nothing is guaranteed. The job or career that we have right now is not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then what?
I love that.
That's where the desperation happens.
Okay.
So if you take control and start taking steps to expand your knowledge, develop your skill sets, and if one door closes, another door will open right away.
Good. That's interesting. What kind of like when you talk about skills, like what kind of skills do you consider like as mandatory for people to develop, in order to, let's just say, easily scale their careers, for example?
Yeah, so let me show you one. And it might seem like common sense.
Sure.
But as we know, common is not always common, right?
Right.
Communicating and interacting with others.
Right.
You have to have the people skills.
Mm.
Even with the people, Helder, that you don't like.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be able to get along with them.
Okay.
And you have to, I think that's an important skill set. And sometimes I've heard people say, well, I don't like them, I'm not going to talk to them. I don't like them, I'm not going to interact with them. Well, sometimes we don't have a choice.
Okay.
And we have to smile even though we might be upset with someone, and we have to be direct with people. So I think the people skills, in education they call it soft skills. You have to have those soft skills.
Okay.
Communication, oral communication is one.
Right.
Written communication, to some extent, is another. And also the ability to interact and communicate with others. Because typically in most careers, no one does a job by themselves. It always requires a group effort. And that's something that you don't have to go to school for.
Right.
You have to be willing to develop that skill.
That's another very important point, because most people think that because they graduated from university, they got like the bachelor's degree, the master's degree, even PhD, of course. They usually tend to think that the success is already guaranteed because of the level of education they actually have, which is not reality, right? Because one thing is about the information, say the knowledge that you had access to a lot of information. And the other thing is actually where I usually teach is the skills that you can or not develop. Because skills add value and pay the bills, right? And most people.
You're absolutely right. Skills are important, but they're not the only thing.
Yeah. Well, it's not the only thing, but for one to be able to, for example, to add significant value. For example, let's just say, for example, they work in HR. For them to be able to really communicate, to have these people skills, interaction and everything, I mean, they have to have the people skills, right? The communication skills, right? Yeah. If they don't,
right. I think what I've learned, Helder, is like when I was younger,
right?
The person you see now is not the person that I was 20 years from now.
Okay.
When I was younger, I used to tell people what to do.
Okay.
Now that I'm older, I coach people in what to do.
Good. That's interesting. That's interesting. So if we could like try to summarize, by the way, everyone watching, you can already start posting your questions. If you have questions here, you can ask questions in the chat regardless of the platform where you're watching from, because we live on 3 different platforms. We live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on my YouTube channel, Helder the Mentor. So would you say that for someone who's already experienced, has a career, like doesn't matter 5, 10, 15, 20 years, in order to scale, they gotta work on the people skills, which involves the communication?
I think that's an essential element.
Sure.
There's other skills that they need to develop, right?
Yeah.
But I think the people skills, where I see most people struggle,
exactly.
where I see people lose their jobs, it typically is not the technical stuff. Because we can develop those technical skills.
I love it.
But it's those people skills that we cannot develop. It's kind of inside you.
Right.
Like we can't make you be friendlier, either be friendly or not, or you can develop the skill set to be friendlier.
And I would add to it is the ability to really understand, other people. Understand ourselves, of course, first, but then also understand other people, because I feel like, based on my experience, and I've seen that countless times, people really struggle to understand other people. And sometimes it happens because they don't really understand themselves. They cannot lead themselves, they don't have the right mindset, the right skill set, and we, of course, we include that, we include actually the communication skills into that group. And because most of the time people don't really know how to ask the right question, strategic questions. And because they don't know how to ask the question, nor to overcome the potential objections that will come out from other people, they get really confused. They get into an argument, they just fight, and they struggle to lead. And I know you also have this experience, but most people that they dream of becoming a great leader, but then they don't really invest in this type of skills. What do you like? What's your best advice or recommendation to those people, like those professionals who are already experienced, but they still struggle to scale their careers?
Yeah, Helga, I think I've heard many wonderful things that you stated. That
okay.
As you were saying it, I saw these images in my mind.
Okay.
Conversations that I've seen.
Right.
So one thing that you had mentioned in regards to communication with yourself.
Yep.
Like always leave your ego at the door.
Right.
If you make decisions based on your ego, they're not wise decisions, and you're going to get in trouble.
Because ego is not your amigo, right?
Ego is not your amigo.
Right.
Because they're making it emotionally based on your needs,
right?
Not other people's needs. Or what's in the best interest of the organization that you're working for. The other thing that I've heard you kind of say, going back to the mindset and the reflection, I think most of us, based on the people that I've talked to, the thousands of people that I've talked to, most of us know what we struggle with.
Yeah.
Most of us, we might not admit it.
Right.
But we know what we need to work on.
That's the catch.
If you already identify that, if you already know kind of what you need to work on, you don't need to tell everyone, but you can go start working on it now.
Right.
So one thing that I do, for example, once again, when I was younger, whenever someone used to come to me with a problem,
right?
Like, no, I have a problem, I would solve it for them. Because I thought that was my job. And I think as a manager, maybe that is your job, but as a leader, it's not your job. As a leader, we're responsible for developing others.
Right.
So now that I'm older, people know if they come to me with a problem, I'm going to say, well, what are 3 possible solutions? And then I help them navigate. What do you think might happen? What's the worst case scenario? If you had to redo your presentation, what would it sound like? Or now also going back to the coaching, like oftentimes in my position that I currently have, I have to have difficult conversations with people.
Okay.
It's hard on them. And it's also hard on me to have a conversation. So now what I do, what I've learned is that at the very beginning, when I'm going over their evaluation expectations for the year, I'll ask them, if I have a concern, how would you like me to communicate with you?
Exactly.
So basically, I'm asking permission.
That's a powerful question.
Concern. Yeah. So now when I have a concern, I'll say, based on our previous conversation, you mentioned that if I have a concern, this is what I should do.
I love that. Love that. I love that. It's all like we actually aligned. We are on the same page. That's the reason, like why I tell people like be mindful, yes, but do not ignore your ability or your skills of communication. Like many people might like misunderstand that. It's not about the journalism. It's really about the communication, strategic communication that really helps you to get where you want to get. Because people don't get it because they don't know how to ask a question, how to ask for something. Let's just say, for example, I think that might be like a good example that we can actually discuss here based on our experience. For example, during a job interview, someone can ask, like the recruiter can ask, okay, well, Gonzalo, tell me, like we do have different candidates here. You're not the only one. Why should we hire you and not the other candidates? What's your best like advice for someone who's watching right now and say, well, how do I even answer this question? And we're going to discuss about it.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because at the end, it's like, why should we hire you?
Mm.
Right. So one thing that I always tell people is don't answer the question the same as other people. Because if you're saying the same thing that 5, 6 other people say, then they can hire them, right? Because it's the same thing.
Exactly.
So that's where the preparation comes in and the reflecting.
Right.
One thing that I always do, I go back to the mission statement of the organization.
Sure.
What do they value?
Mm.
Right? Because they'll tell you what they value. And then also I think about what problem are they trying to solve?
Mm.
And I weave that into my responses. So let me give you an example, Helder.
Right.
So Helder, based on the mission statement, as I was doing my research for this interview, I was reviewing your mission statement and your vision statement for the organization. And one of the things it states is that they value diversity and they value personal development.
Right.
So let me quickly share what I have done in the last 10 years to develop myself, so that way I can bring more value to the organization that we're serving. In
Good.
addition, as I was looking at your data, your quarterly reports, I noticed the following. Based on my educational background and experience, I spent a lot of time developing that skill set, so that way I could bring value in making sure that the organization grows.
Okay.
So I tie in things that they're saying already into my response. Now it has to be genuine.
Right.
I fake it. Because
Sure.
the worst thing to do is fake an interview to get a job, because you might get the job and you might not want the job, or they might not want you.
Right. That's right. That's correct. I totally agree with you, because even though like I do it slightly different, and when I teach and when I do it, when I had to do it way before, it was like, okay, this question, which is a very good question, and it's at the same time, it's a tricky one, right? So it's like, you telling me that you guys have different candidates, right? And the recruiter is asking me, Helder, but why should we hire you? Like, because you're not the only candidate. We have different candidates here. But I want everybody watching to remember, if you ask this type of question, first of all, remember that, and just like Gonzalo mentioned, you don't have to lie in the job interview. Like, just tell the truth. Come from the heart, with open heart, open mind, but really tell the truth. But in order to tell the truth, you need to know yourself, your value, your true value, what you're worth, and what you bring on the table. Of course, you need to do like your homework, which is studying about the company and why, and trying to figure out why exactly are they motivated to hire someone for that position. To give it a very, very quick and practical example, I would say, well, I'm someone who comes with from integrity, and I don't think I've ever met those other candidates that you just mentioned about. But you just talked about but please correct me if I'm wrong. Based on what I read about your company and the job posting, I've seen that you're looking for. Then I'll be like mentioning like 2 to 3 aspects or key elements they actually mention on the job posting. They're actually looking for on a candidate, and they'll say, hey, but I gotta make sure these are things that I really have. For example, if they're looking for someone who speaks like at least 1 international language, and I know I speak 3, I can mention that. If they're looking for someone who has like a solid experience like leading teams for at least five people, and I know I've done that consistently. I know I have experience in that. Even like maybe like I have had experience of leading teams like with much more people than 5 people. If they're looking for someone, for example, who is experienced in project management, for example, and I know I have that experience, so I'm going to mention 3 things which I really believe that make me a strong candidate. And I'm gonna tell them, well, please correct me if I'm wrong. Based on what I understood from from a job posting, you're looking for someone who can speak at least 1 international language. You're looking for someone who has experience in the project management, and you're looking for someone who has experience in leading teams of at least 5 people. Are we on the same page so far? I'm going to ask the question because I want to make sure the person, the recruiter, and I are actually on the same page. So I'm actually validating the actual need, and I want to make sure, and I want to motivate them to validate, to confirm that that's actually what they need, what they're looking for. Once they have confirmed, I can tell them, well, I have been leading teams of at least 10 people, 15 people, wherever it is, right? Successfully, or for over X amount of years, let's say 20 years, 3 years, 4 or 5 years. Good. I not only speak 1 international language, but I do speak 3, namely English, French, and Portuguese. And I've been managing projects like with budgets of at least $1 million, $2 million, wherever it is. It has to be the truth, of course. But then I tell them, well, but I have to confess, I'm not sure if, based on your hiring strategy, if you're looking for someone who comes on board and really can really add significant value, guaranteed, based on their experience, or if you're actually looking for someone who can come on board but just try to do the gas work and not sure if they can actually add significant value. Which profile are you actually looking for? So this is just another way. There's not like right or wrong. It's just like different ways of answering the question very strategically, so we can actually involve the person, clarifying, and actually help the person, help ourselves to really give the right answer, if that makes sense. Right. Yeah.
The connection between you and the organization.
Exactly.
You're basically making sound like I'm the one.
Well, I don't tell them. I let them assume that.
I've seen so many people.
Yeah.
And this is like young and old who just start talking without saying anything of value, right? And then they're hoping that the person on the other side,
right,
is getting what they need.
Right.
Like, I'm a perfect fit. I speak 3 languages.
Yeah.
I've led you're telling them what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And like you said, in order to do that,
yeah,
you have to do some preparatory work.
Exactly.
You can't just fake it.
Right.
It's not going to come out as cleanly.
It will not. It won't come up. And I've met people saying, oh, well, you know what? If they ask me during job interview, I'm just going to tell them I'm the right candidate. I'm the best you can have. People just like doing like, it's like hard sell, okay, I'm the best. But are you actually the best? And I want to also like highlight this aspect here. The reason why I tell them that I come from integrity, which is true, and because I don't know, actually, I've never met the other candidates, well, as far as I know, and I don't think it's fair that for me to compare to those other candidates. It's also a question of integrity, telling the truth, because most people would say, well, because I'm the best. How do you know that you're actually the best, you're actually better than those candidates if you don't even know their experience, you don't even know their profile, you're not even sure if you ever met them before, So if I was the one actually interviewing the person, the candidate, I'll say, well, so how do you know you're actually better? How do you know they don't have the experience? Some people say, well, because I have the experience, I have the profile. So how do you know that all those people, all those candidates, you don't even know how many we're talking about? They do not have the profile, the skills that we're actually looking for. So I want people really to know and to think about it as they watch this live session, live conversation, or even if they'll just watch the replay. I want them to think about it when they answer this kind of questions, right? Because it's not about the technique, it's not about the skills, but it's also about like your personality, who you are as a person. Can they trust you, right? Yeah.
That's a good question, right? Can they trust you?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right, you have that, right, and you have to be able to do that. And just like what you stated right now, I think like your audience is getting a wealth of information.
Oh yeah, they do. By the way, they can already post their questions because I have them here on the screen. We're just waiting for the questions because we're good. I think our time is good. We are ready to get to receive questions, right, Gonzalo? So we can interact more.
Like what you stated earlier, like people
Right.
worry about the techniques, right? Which will come in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a self-reflection. It's a mindset, right?
Right.
Things that you have to ask yourself: am I trustworthy? Do I have integrity?
Right.
And because that will help you along the way.
Mm.
And it's self-reflection. It's a thing that you can't really learn it. You can read about it.
Right.
But you really have to take time with yourself.
Exactly.
To develop it. And if you don't, sometimes I've seen some people where they made mistakes. When they were younger, they made mistakes. And then how do they overcome it? And that's one of the things that I also do with my coaching. Is sometimes we all have blemishes. Right?
Wow.
Like I know I have some parking tickets where I was speeding, and sometimes it comes up, right? But then how do we, if that is the case, it's better to be honest.
Right.
Because if you try to hide it, it's going to come up.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask the questions, right? So sometimes it might be better to be honest and say, look, when I was younger,
right.
What happened? And this is what I've learned since then.
Right.
And this is how I've been trying to improve my life to make it better.
And
And then those people will give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And you know what? Like I do think that based on my experience, and I do that up to these days, it's like most people do not even take the time, which I call the thinking time. It's like yourself, like right now, like I'm on my studio, and if I was not doing this, job interview, kind of, I'm actually just running the show. I'll be potentially like taking like 10, 15, 20 minutes, just, be with yourself, like in a quiet place, and, so you can actually take the time to really think about yourself. Most people really struggle to even ask themselves the hard questions. They say like they want everything, but why exactly do you want what it is you said you want it? Because I just want it. Why do you want it? So the why is mission critical in most things, and people tend to ignore that. They say they want to scale their career. I want to scale my career. I want to have like a very good and powerful career. And I want to have international career. I want to learn this, but why? The question is, why do you want it? And people just struggle to answer to themselves, for themselves. They just struggle to answer that. So they don't have like the self-talk. They don't invest time to really think about it, to really like talk to themselves. So this is what I want. This is the reason why I want it. And this is how I will potentially feel if I already had this, if I was already like on that situation. People don't really ask these questions. And this is also one of the reasons I've been there before. They just struggle because I want everybody to understand, because we here right now sharing our experience. It might sound good and really good when we say, well, I have over 15 years of experience, but along these years, and Gonzalo, you're going to confirm, it was not easy at all. So wherever it is you want to do it, oh yeah, if it's right, it's not going to be easy. People just give up on their career. They just give up on their business because it's too hard. And I want everyone watching right now, even if they watch the replay, to remember that the reason why most people struggle in their life is because successful people, they do what's hard. So they live their life in like looking like it's so easy. They see life easier because they have already done what was really hard. But those who do not have success, they just choose to do what's easy, what's really light. And then what happens that later they just find out that, okay, they just find the life so hard because they did not invest the time to really better themselves. Do you have a comment on that, Gonzalo?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think because I think we see people like their social media, we see the highlights.
Exactly.
Right?
You're right.
The moment in time, right? But behind that, there are a lot of hours and struggles that they went through
to
get to that point. And sometimes it's not even it's them, and it's also their family.
Yeah.
Like there's especially if you have a spouse, there's a family dynamics, kids.
Right.
All pay a price.
Oh yeah.
And I think I struggle to believe that as you go through your journey, having that roadmap, going back to the beginning of our conversation, having that roadmap,
right, the plan, right?
Yeah, sharing that plan. Because sometimes what you envision and what your spouse envisions might be an the opposite ends, and that might cause some problems.
Yeah.
So having that discussion early on, and just to create some alignment. It doesn't mean that they need to agree.
Right.
Just have the discussion
early
on.
Yeah. Exactly. I totally agree with you because it's like in order to learn, sometimes really like it happens that life really forces us to learn something like the hard way, right? But I also believe that even though it happens, sometimes, but if we really want to do better, we have to know better. And in order to learn, we have to be willing to learn. We have to be able to empty our cup. If you do not empty your cup, the reason why I talk about it is because most people feel like, okay, you know what? I'm the man in the house. I don't have to share anything, any kind of information, any sensitive information with my family, my wife. My kids won't understand it. My wife, she's not going to understand it. But the thing is that if you look at it from a different perspective, it's like, well, maybe you actually assume that your wife, your partner, your spouse, they would not understand that. But have you ever even tried to talk to her or to him? And why do I talk about it? Because even like in the profession, the corporate world, in the business world, people usually assume things. Oh, well, it's like, oh, Gonzalo, Helder, I was waiting for your feedback. Oh, you know what? I thought it was not important. Why did you think about it? Why did you think that way? Like, did I even mention that to you? Like, it was not important? If we had a deal, and people might feel like, okay, maybe you are like, you're not talking about the same thing. We are talking about the same thing. Because our career and our business is actually just a reflection of who we are. So if you're someone who just assume things, you don't ask, you don't validate the things that you need to validate, you might be like in a position where you are always in trouble because people will feel like, okay, Helder, you did not tell me anything. And the same thing happens during job interviews. Same thing happens in business. Okay, we're waiting for your feedback. Oh, because you didn't tell me anything else. That's actually famous. Oh, yeah, we were supposed to meet at 4 p.m., right? But I look at my watch, and because you didn't tell me anything else, I just assumed that you were not available. Why was I not available? Because we had a commitment. We had a deal, right? And I think it's also important. Like, what's your experience on that, Gonzalo? What's your experience? You've been coaching people.
One of the things that I heard, like tying it back to what you said, integrity.
Right.
Like keeping your word. Right?
That's my brother there making comments. I know you cannot see, but you go see the work.
Keeping your work to yourself.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. It starts off really small.
Right.
Like, going to sleep on time. Being home on time. Spending
Right.
time with your kids. Reading a book. So one of the things that I do, because I'm always developing just like you.
Sure.
Every day I read 10 pages a day.
Wow, that's very good.
I have we're saying I'm going to read 2 books a year.
Yeah.
3 books a year, because we know that's not going to happen.
I like that. I like that.
If I read 10 pages a day, that's doable. I can read 10 pages a day.
Yeah.
That's easy. And in a year, I'm going to read 3 books. It's a more realistic goal.
Exactly.
With back to the integrity, whatever you value, you really have to spend time with yourself.
Yeah.
What do you value? Because it requires a commitment, and I think that's
right
in the long run. Because if not, then
yeah,
you're going to end up somewhere.
Sure.
It might not be where you want to be.
Right. So less is more sometimes, right? And I agree with you, because I feel like people, they just want to be good at everything. I do not agree with that, because I respect, like, most people come to me and they ask me for things that I'm not really good at, and I just tell them, well, I'm not good at this thing. I don't know how it works. So why don't you know, Helder? Well, because I've never found it like very interesting to learn about. So I'd rather just focus on my thing, on things I do and I want to do. Even though people say, you're like amazing. I don't want to think that way, so I don't take the risk of stop learning, because most people get stuck in their careers, their business, because they just stop learning. They struggle to even admit they need to learn more. They have to know better so they can do better. And regarding the books, like reading books, it's a good thing, but I'd rather study books. I take a book, I just like you said, I read that like 10 pages a day, 5 pages a day. I just want to make sure wherever I read, I really understand, so I can learn enough so I can implement. And by the way, I cannot end up this broadcasting without mentioning that. LIG, I talk about it all the time. Learn, implement, and the G, of course, is grow. People want to grow without even implementing. The learn part, I would say that, well, they usually have access to the information. There's a lot of information out there, but they absorb so much information, but then they struggle to really implement, So, but we have to realize that even like to implement, we got to make sure we actually understand. So that's the reason, like, I do what I do the way I do, and I believe that's the reason that you actually do what you do and the way you do it is like, instead of reading like 10, 15, 20 books, you take few books and you start reading like, 10 pages a day, 5 pages a day, so you can actually take your time and really understand what you're actually reading about. Is that right? Right. Exactly. And I think we're good to get the questions. If they have questions, our audience here from different platforms, if they have questions. By the way, while they type the questions, if they have one, Gonzalo, how can people get a hold of you? Like, how can they contact you? Your email information, like any.
Yeah, so one way to do it, if they want to send me an email, that I'm always on my email and I'm always on my computer.
Great.
So it's great. Yeah, the email, my email is greatjobsuccess@gmail.com.
Let me try to type it here. Great job
success.
Yep.
Gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Okay. I'm typing here.
I do YouTube videos with a lot of wisdom. Just like what you're sharing today with your audience.
Right.
Is that there's so much knowledge that we've gained over the years. And
oh yeah.
But that it didn't come easy. Like I made my share of mistakes.
Right.
I learned from it.
Yeah, the same happened to me.
Taking advantage of your platform And also, once they're ready, taking the next step and investing in themselves through the services that you provide.
Sure.
Getting things for free, it's nice.
Yeah.
But I think if your audience really wants to implement and change their life
Exactly.
better, they have to pay for your services, because that's where the commitment.
Sure. You gotta have the skin in the game, right?
Yeah. Whatever you charge, if they start now, multiply by the number of years that they have left.
Right.
You're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Why not do it?
Exactly.
It's a good return of investment
in
their own personal development. And then they're going to be that much more successful. So in regards to my YouTube video, my YouTube link. It's www.youtube.com/.
I'll try to type it here. .com/
at Dr. Gonzalo
Avila. Right.
And how for your audience, for the first 3 to 5, let's say 5, I'm willing to do a free 30-minute coaching.
Sure.
For only
Good.
the first 5.
We're going to be sharing.
Also, and I have kids, but I think it's worth their investment.
Sure. We're going to be sharing mainly on not only on the YouTube, actually on different platforms, but for sure on the YouTube, because sometimes we have a hard time to edit. I'll check with my team, but we're going to be sharing. I already typed the email address, which is great job. Can you spell it? GREA. Right.
JOBSUCCESS gmail.com.
Great. We got it. That's correct. And the YouTube is Dr. Gonzalo Avila, right?
That's correct.
That's correct.
All one word.
One word. Yeah. I got you. Wow. It was a pleasure. And I want to invite everyone watching right now, or even if they watch the replay, to really not only listen, but take note. Just like I did here. I taken few notes here. It's very important to take notes, or actually write it down. And remember, without implementation, there's no growth, because you need to experience that. And that's the reason why we do what we do as coaches, as mentors. Gonzalo has been, coaching people on their careers, for employment, and not only that, just say it involves different things. And I want to thank you. And I've been doing the same, pretty much the same, even though I work with both corporate executives and, entrepreneurs. We do have the Communicate and Monetize Challenge.com. That's a link people can actually, get into, subscribe, you register if they want to be part of this challenge happening next month of May. So people will definitely find all the information right there. But remember, if you do not invest in yourself right now, it doesn't matter who you want to help learn from, if it's Helder or Dr. Gonzalo, you do it. And remember, the investment is not on our products or services. It's actually in you, in yourself. You invest in yourself so you know better and you can do better. That's it. Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalo. I'm not sure if you have any last words to say to the audience here, or if you're done already. The floor is yours.
Yeah, my last comment to your audience is that
you
are valuable. And you have to have that belief in yourself.
Good.
You are valuable.
Great. I love that. And I want to thank you. I have another show happening on Saturday. It's not going to be in English. It's going to be in Portuguese. That's a different thing. But I think it's not fair that I would not, do something special for my other community, like the Portuguese community. I have the English one, but I also have the Portuguese. Not talking much about the French community, but the Portuguese as well. So this is actually what we do, because we don't take anything from this world, when we actually leave the world, right? Except from everything we do positive here, the impact that we have in other people's lives. So we're giving back from the best of what we know. And just like you mentioned, Dr. Gonzalo, it's great to know and to get something for free. But if you're really serious and you want to go to the next level where not everyone can actually meet, you have to be really committed to investing in yourself. You gotta have the skin in the game, right? And make sure you know what you're doing. With that being said, I'm gonna say goodbye, bye-bye. See you next Thursday, I think. Yeah, next Thursday. We're going to be here with another guest. Of course, Dr. Gonzalo will be coming back soon, sometime soon, when you're available. And I really appreciate your time and everything you shared with my global audience here, Dr. Gonzalo. And it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good. We're done. Thank you. Bye, everyone.